Good evening. It's Wednesday evening, I'm sorry. It's about 9 o'clock. This is August the 27th. Tonight I'll be discussing chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita, the extended explanation of the chapter. And I'm using Vyasa's version of the Gita. He was one of the original writers of the Mahabharata, as you well know, and the Gita is an extract from that. And in turn, he's one of the writers of the Gita, if not the writer. I'm using a comparative discourse using the thoughts of Shankara, the great commentator, and my own thoughts and commentaries. And this gives us sort of an ancient versus modern version of the interpretation of this ancient text. So you'll get his version, the great commentator Shankara's, and you'll get my version as a modern yogi. I'm James Exum. My yogic name is Sakshi, which means the witness. So we'll go ahead and start now, if you don't mind. Chapter 9 of the Gita is titled Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga. That translates to the yoga of royal knowledge and the yoga of the royal secret. The core of chapter 9, according to Vedavyasa, which is the formal name of Vyasa, who was a sage, is credited with compiling the Mahabharata, as I said, in the Bhagavad Gita. He structures chapter 9 as Krishna's loving revelation to Arjuna of the supreme, all-sustaining reality. If you don't know the story of the Gita yet, then you can look it up, please, on Wikipedia or Yogapedia or any other source online that you wish to consult. So that all-sustaining reality. Here, the divine voice not only utters metaphysical truths, but also offers an intimate assurance of grace, devotion, and the souls, in the possessive sense, ultimate liberation, which is the yoga name for liberation is moksha. The chapter's opening proclaims, quote, "To you who are not given to carping," which is a really old-fashioned word, which in modern English it just simply means complaining, "I shall reveal this supreme knowledge, the king of all sciences and the sovereign of secrets." Well, if you've listened to any of my other videos, you know that I always refer to yoga not as a religion, but as a science. I call it either the science of living or the science of life. Well, now you see where I got that idea years and years ago, reading the works of the great masters and the great commentators. The king of all sciences and the sovereign of secrets. And that's from the first verse of the 9th chapter of the Gita, 9.1. Vyasa's rendering is poetic and profound. He weaves together the threads of Jnana Yoga, which is knowledge, and Bhakti Yoga, which is devotion, and Karma Yoga, which is action. There are different types of yoga, as you well know. If you're versed in this, and if you're new to it, you will learn. You will learn, and you will learn. I've been learning for over 50 years now. It's an endless, almost as endless as the universe itself, realm of knowledge from which you can partake and absorb, assimilate, and enjoy. Hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I have. The recurring theme is immanence and the transcendence of the divine, who is at once formless and manifest. We're talking about Brahman now, for whom the entire creation is a play and a dwelling. I often say that it's the play of Leela. We're in God's play. We're characters on the stage of God's play, and we're acting out his divine will. That's why I always tell my friends, in fact, a friend was over earlier playing canasta with me, and I mentioned to her, I won't embarrass her by saying her full name, but her first name is Luann. And I said to Luann, don't take life so seriously. Just enjoy it. You're here to enjoy life. You're not here to, there's a series of speed bumps that happen in life. She had an accident with her van the other day, and she's taking it very seriously. And I said, well, haven't you had accidents before? Life is a series of happenings, and time is what happens between the sequence. Time is what occurs between the sequences of occurrences. Time is just a measurement of different things happening in your life and the distance between them. The distance of going around the sun, for the planet, our planet, to circle the sun one full time, is 365 and a quarter days. So that is solar time. Who is at once formless and manifest, for whom the entire creation is a play and a dwelling. Now we're talking about the transcendence of the divine and the recurring themes in this chapter. The Lord promises unequivocally, whoever with love and faith offers even a leaf, a flower, or fruit, or water, I accept that loving offering from the pure-hearted. Now that's the 9th chapter, verse 26. Through this, Vedavyasa reveals the universality, the universal accessibility of the divine through sincere devotion, regardless of social standing or ritual expertise. It doesn't matter if you're a practitioner of yoga that is an experienced swami and you do rituals all the time. It doesn't matter if you're the poorest of the poor as a follower of yoga. We're all the same in the eyes of the divine one, of the creator, of Brahman. We're all the same in the eyes of God. Now, his commentary on the non-dual light. Now we're getting into the philosophy of yoga, and that is my expertise. I'm a practitioner and a student of yoga philosophy. Adi Shankara, the 8th century philosopher and master of Advaita Vedanta, approaches chapter 9 with a penetrating gaze of non-duality. Non-duality means that God is not up here and we're down here. Down here, he's up here and we're down here. It simply means we're both made from the same bolt cloth. I'm not God, but I'm a portion of the Creator. No matter which religion you go into, it pretty much says God created his creations. He's the creator, we're the creation. Well, there was nothing else in the universe before God. There was nothing except for God. So if we're his creations, where did we come from? We had to come from the source, which is God, which makes us a portion of God. That's my explanation of it. You can take it or leave it. That's up to you. His bhashya, which is just another word for commentaries, is at the forefront of the unity of Atman and Brahman. In other words, Atman is the soul, Brahman is the creator. For Shankara, the royal secret is not merely esoteric knowledge, hidden knowledge, esoteric, but the realization that the jiva, which is another word for the soul or for the individual soul, and Brahman, the supreme soul, the supreme reality, are one. Well, that's variations on what I just said. Shankara interprets the Lord's words as an explication, which simply means revelation, of Maya, the creative power by which one appears as the many. When Krishna declares, all beings abide in me, but I do not abide in them, that's chapter 9, verse 4, Shankara elucidates that the world's apparent diversity is superimposed upon the non-dual substratum of pure consciousness. Now we're into higher philosophy. You can review this section as much as you like by rewinding. And then you could actually go into the Gita itself, to the 9th chapter, look up these verses and study them ad infinitum. You could study them as long as you like. I've been studying them for almost 50 years, so, and I'm not bored yet. So maybe there's a little excitement in there for you if you're of the scholarly bent like I am, if you have a scholarly mind. As a child, if you had an insatiable curiosity, you're probably a scholar of some type. Okay, I was. Moreover, Shankara emphasizes the accessibility of the divine through bhakti, not as mere emotionalism, but as a means of self-knowledge. I learned more about myself by reading the scriptures of, and when I say scriptures, I'm not talking about religious scriptures, I'm talking about philosophical scriptures of the Vedic books, the Vedic texts. It's a mean to me of learning about me. Where else can you learn more about the soul than in the great books written basically about the Creator and his great creation, which is the soul? The verse, quote, even if the most sinful worships me, now this sounds almost contradictory, but in actuality, it's not. It sounds almost contradictory, but it's not. Excuse me. I was doing some light cleaning before my friend came over today, and I'm allergic to dust, as you've learned by now. Or maybe you haven't, but I am. So that's why I have my handkerchief out. Making my sinuses act up a bit. The verse, even if the most sinful worships me with undeviating devotion, they must be considered righteous. In other words, can a sinful man be righteous? Well, if he has righteous karma, if he has righteous dharma, the path is dharma, the act is karma. If he's righteous in both the act and the path he is on, then of course he can be righteous, because he's righteous in his actions and he's righteous in the path he is or traveling upon towards his ultimate goal, which is moksha. You can be a sinner and still be faithful to God. There's no contradiction there. I know you would think, as a Christian or a Muslim or whatever faith, I'm not judging any faith, because remember, yoga is not a faith. It's a science. And that dispels a lot of the arguments that can come up from this type of discussion, this type of philosophical observation or debate. There is no debate here. I'm not debating with you. I'm passing knowledge on to you that I've accumulated over the last 50 odd years. I'm not trying to debate you. I'm not even trying to convince you. I'm just here to present and to share, before I leave this earth, what I've gathered together and think is proper to pass on to the world. Shankara insists that devotion purifies the mind. Couldn't disagree with that at all, preparing it for the dawn of realization. Well, how else can you come to the dawn of realization if you have a cluttered mind, a trashy mind, a mind filled with junk and useless data? You're not going to reach the great answer if you haven't cleaned out there used to be an expression in computer work, trash in, trash out, garbage in, garbage out. Well, you've got to get the garbage out of the way before you can refill the mind with proper data, which leads to realization. The ultimate fruit is not heaven or some reward, but the soul's awakening to its eternal identity, and internal. Your soul is internal. They say it's the size of an atom, and it resides in your heart. Well, it can reside anywhere it wants. It's the soul. But the soul's awakening to the eternal, the ultimate fruit is not heaven or some reward, but the soul's awakening to its eternal identity with Brahman. Well, I just told you how we identify with Brahman. We're part of him. Always was, always shall be. Brahman is eternal, the soul is eternal. My name is Sakshi, which means the witness, but Sakshi is also another name in in yogic language for the soul. So I named my soul Sakshi, the witness. That's another story, and you can find it in some of my other videos on YouTube. Thank you very much. Little homework on the side, I suppose, but I don't assign homework. I'm one of those teachers that just teaches and moves on. Okay, so I look at, that's how Sakshi looks at it. Now I'm going to do that comparative analysis for you, that contrasting analysis, and show you how I look at this chapter of the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9. Okay, I write as one who writes and teaches under the name of Sakshi, which I just told you about. I also bring a modern universalist perspective grounded in direct spiritual experience. I have had spiritual experiences. This is no joke. I'm not mad, I'm not insane, I'm not off my rocker, I'm not cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, no commercial intended, or any of that. I have had spiritual experiences, and they're marvelous. I don't have them all the time, and I'm not deranged in any way, shape, or form. It's just, well, a lot of people. If I'm deranged, all the apostles of the Christ are deranged, or were. They had spiritual experiences. Mary Magdalene had spiritual experiences. Mary, the Madonna, had spiritual experiences. The angel came to her and said, "Fear not, you are with child." If that's not a spiritual experience, I don't know what the hell is. No offense. I'm not a pope, I'm not a bishop, I'm not a priest. I'm a yogi. And I use very simple language that might be considered vulgar. But if that's vulgar nowadays, then I don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, if the President of the United States can use the type of language on the air in front of children in the televised audience, then what I'm saying is jelly beans compared to what that falls out of that man's lips. But that, I'm not getting into politics, I'm just making an observation. That's just a fact. My opinion, by the way. Okay, so I'm going to go on with my contemporary viewpoint of what this chapter is about. I am opinionated. So into my lectures and writings, I construct a bridge between Shankara's non-dualism and a more inclusive, pluralistic approach to the Gita. I think everyone is worth saving and is on the road to salvation. They just haven't realized it yet. And that's what realization is all about, is knowing your time, place, and position in the cosmos. Once you come to that state, to that manifestation of your mindset, then you have reached realization. I emphasized a radical devotion and immediacy that permeate chapter 9. I point to Krishna's oft-quoted assurance, "I swiftly delivered them from the ocean of birth and death." Now that's chapter 9, verse 22, unquote. I reflect on relationships with the divine that transcends dogma, ritual, or philosophical speculation. I'm very open-minded. I'm a very modern man, even though I'm in my mid-70s. For myself, the royal secret is not only the knowledge of Brahman, and here again I go back to what I said at the beginning of this little section we're in now, but the lived experience of surrendering to the divine will. The living experience of surrendering to the divine will. And in the ancient language of yoga, that is called Sharanagati. Sharanagati. Okay? And that is the great word you're looking for. Learning how to experience a surrendering to the divine will. I draw from both classical commentaries and personal insights. I read chapter 9 as a confluence. Confluence is like two streams coming together. A confluence of paths. The wisdom of Shankara's jnana, which is wisdom, the zeal of Ramanuja's bhakti, the engagement of karma, action, as taught by Swami Vivekananda in his comparative discourses. I often have centered the universal application of Krishna's promise, quote, those who worship me with unwavering devotion, I provide what they lack and preserve what they have, unquote. That's chapter 9, verse 22. For me, as an aging yogi, this is the heartbeat of the Gita. For me, as an aging yogi, this is the heartbeat of the Gita. This is the pumping. This is what keeps it going. This is what makes it eternal. This wisdom is eternal. It was, even when it was new, it was true. Now that it's going into its 4,000th year, it's still true. Not that the Gita was written 4,000 years ago, but yoga came into practice about 4,000 years ago, or longer. Those who worship me with unwavering devotion, I provide what they lack and preserve what they have, unquote. For me, as an aging yogi, this is the heartbeat of the Gita, divine grace, and here's what the heartbeat is, in my opinion. Divine grace responding to human aspirations. I wrote this, so I'm not, and you're welcome to do the same. Our approach is also different in their attitude towards ritual and tradition. Shankara, respecting Vedic orthodoxy, upholds the efficiency of scriptural efficacy of scriptural paths, but points beyond them to the non-dual truth. I, while engaging with a global audience, and I do have a global audience, believe it or not, already. I have people in Israel, I have people in Canada. I don't have a lot of people, but I have into the hundreds now, it seems. I, while engaging with a global audience, de-emphasize sectarian boundaries, drawing parallels with Christian, Sufi, Buddhist, and a multiplicity of other religions that are out there. I seem to be touching people, at least bumping into them, or they're bumping into me, whichever way you want to frame it. The key verses of these interpretive insights. Now I'm going to do some quotes here. I normally don't do this, but I'm going to. 9.2, which is chapter 9, verse 2. This knowledge is the king of sciences and the sovereign of secrets. Well, we've already heard that. Shankara interprets this as the supreme science of the self, accessible to the pure-hearted. I highlight the openness of Krishna's invitation because no one is excluded. 9.4. By me, all this universe is pervaded by unmanifested form. Shankara reads this as the doctrine of non-duality again. The world is not separate from Brahman, where I draw out the experience aspects. The divine is closer than one's own breath, is one of the other quotes. That's in 9.4. 9.2.6. Whoever offers to me with devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water. Well, I've already gone through these, and now I'm doing a redundancy of them so that you can get a second chance at hearing them and hopefully assimilating them. Shankara sees this as an affirmation of the simplicity of true devotion, which prepares the mind for knowledge. I gently differ by underscoring the radical inclusivity. And then I underscored this. The divine responds to the heart, not to ritual perfection. In a lot of organized religion, there's ritual every Sunday or every Saturday, and they go through the ritual. You know what a ritual is. You see it on TV, you see it in the Mass, you see it in all sorts of religious ceremonies. Well, I'm not so impressed by ritual as I am by the heart being devoted to the Maker, to the Creator. That impresses me, and I truly believe, that He's impressed more by what your heart is saying to Him than the reenactment of the same ceremony over and over and over again. Nothing against it, just my simple opinion. 9.30, even if a person of the most sinful conduct worships me with unwavering faith, they must be considered righteous. I've already explained that one. Shankara interprets this as the transformative power of bhakti, which leads to purification and knowledge. Finally, I celebrate this noble verse as a testament to divine grace. Without divine grace, you will not breathe another breath. Without divine grace, like with Job, everything that you have can disappear in the wink of an eye. Divine grace is what you seek, my friends. Divine grace is grace. And noting afterward that no soul is beyond redemption. That is one of my mainstays, one of my repeated messages to everyone that listens. The wisdom of chapter 9, filtered through Vedavyasa, Shankara, and myself, radiates timeless relevance in a fractured plural world. The chapter's luminous thread is inclusivity, and no one is barred from the path. Shankara's uncompromising Advaita offers the solace of an indivisible absolute. And when we say absolute in yogic language, we're talking about the Creator. We're talking about Brahman. We're talking about God. He is the absolute. Nothing above him. He has no second. He is eternal. While my approach affirms that the divine meets each seeker where they are, whether in knowledge, love, or action. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud that I wrote that little observation. For the contemporary spiritual aspirant, chapter 9 provides not merely doctrine, but a living practice. Its call is to live with awakened awareness, jnana, to love with abandon, bhakti, and to act with integrity, karma. Trusting that the divine is both the source and the goal. Well, he is our source, and he is our goal. That's a beautiful line. I shouldn't show pride in my own writing, but hey, it's a good line. And worth repeating. Conclusion, chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita, shining with Vyasa's poetic genius, acquires new vistas under the scholarly lens of Shankara and my personal insights. Our combined comparative reading revealed a text both ancient and ever new, for the royal secret is not hidden, but offered openly to every heart prepared to receive it. The Gita's perennial wisdom, illuminating it, thus urges us to recognize the divine in all, to embrace knowledge, devotion, and surrender as complementary rays of the same sun, the same glorious being of the Creator. The chapter closes with Krishna's reassurance, fix your mind on me, be devoted to me, sacrifice to me, bow down to me, you shall come to me. Truly this I promise to you, for you are dear to me. Now when Krishna is saying this, he's not saying Krishna, he is saying Krishna. But as I said, I believe in the last video, Krishna is an avatar of God. Like the Christ was an avatar, well, the son of the living God. Not an avatar, the son of the living God, according to Christianity. Well, Krishna is God's representative on earth, and when he says, bow down to me and do these things for me, he's actually talking about doing them for the Father, for the Creator. There's only one God. Everything else is lowercase. He's the ultimate. He's the ineffable word. He is it. He is it. The chapter closes with Krishna's reassurance. Shankara interprets this as the final step to realization. My soul perceives it as the beat of the divine adoration that resounds through all creation. He sees it as the self-realization, my soul, Sakshi, which is actually me. I am my soul. This is merely my body. This is a transient form. It will fall away someday like an old suit of clothes, and my soul will be released back into the cosmos. The soul is eternal. The Creator is eternal. The soul cannot be damaged. The Creator cannot be damaged. Because I'm a piece of the Creator. I'm a part of God. And God, obviously, is a part of my soul. In fact, it's just on loan from God while I'm breathing on this earth. My soul perceives it as the beat of the divine adoration that resounds through all of creation. The heartbeat of creation is the voice and the entity, the Shakti of Brahman, of God. So in conclusion, know this: in the union of knowledge and devotion, the secret becomes sovereign and the soul returns home. And there we are, 34 minutes used up. Went pretty fast. Sorry about losing my temper with those little pests that come around, but you know, everyone has them. They may deny it. Johnny Carson had a great, in the old days when he was still on TV, he had a great line he used one night. Somebody was talking about the bugs in their home, and Johnny Carson says, "Oh yes, I know about those." He says, "They belong to the neighbor." They're just over here visiting. And so it is. Those things, as I told Luann when she came by tonight, I said, you know, those things are older than the dinosaurs. They were here before we got here, and they'll be here after. And they serve their purpose. I haven't quite figured out what it is, but they serve their purpose. And they're God's creations too. I try not to kill them, as I said, but I sure as hell don't want them coming around and visiting me while I'm trying to give you all a presentation. So here we are, we're done, and I'm going to close with my normal words, my normal closing, and that is this. Be good to yourself, be good to others, and be good to your friends, your family, and even strangers. And remember this: if we all practice being good to each other and being civil, who knows, someday we may wake up 5, 10, or 20 years from now and look around and say, oh, this is how it always should have been. And isn't it wonderful that it's finally here? So good night to you. If you enjoyed this, thank you. If you didn't enjoy it, well, that's okay too. But I will see you next time if you want to come back. Thank you again.